Welcome back to IGN Live from Gamescom, coming to you from Germany. Now it's time to take a look at Civilization Beyond Earth. Will Miller is co-lead designer.
Co-lead designer, that's right. Unfortunately, my design partner, David McDonough, couldn't be here. He recently had a new baby, so he's back at home fixing all of my bugs and taking care of his new son.
You get to go on vacation to
No,
Cologne.
This is not a vacation.
Yeah, it's really not. Beyond Earth, spiritual successor to Alpha Centauri?
I guess that's fair. Yeah, it's definitely not the sequel to Alpha Centauri, but it is Civilization in space, and for the first time in almost 15 years, we've been able to take the franchise back to space.
Sure.
And it's just been so exciting to do that.
So, set us up here. The whole premise of this game is that there was something called the Great Mistake.
That's right. About 25 or 30 years from present day, from right now, there's a global catastrophe called the Great Mistake. And we never tell you, the player, what that is. We kind of leave it up to you to decide, but we kind of hint at it. But after that, there's this dark age, about 200 years of dark age, where there's a humanitarian crisis and massive migrations, and the nations of the world reorganize themselves and emerge. And when they emerge is when the game picks up and they start sending colonies into space, because they're approaching the point at which that won't be possible anymore given the resources left on the planet. So it starts at a not really a post-apocalyptic setting, but in a place of hope and optimism.
Sure.
And you represent one of the 8 nations that are sending colonies to space. So we've just landed on the new world here, and we're seeing what we call the fungal biome, and this is one of the things we're showing off at Gamescom this year. It's really exciting. It's one of the, I guess, the most alien of the 3 environmental types we have. We've seen the lush environment, which is kind of like Pandora from Avatar. We've seen the arid environment, which looks a lot like something out of Frank Herbert's Dune. And this is totally alien. Lots of weird flora and fauna, strange tubers and fungus everywhere. So it looks really cool, and we're glad to finally get to show it.
All right, so we've just landed. We're sort of exploring the environment here.
Right, the early game in Civilization is all about exploring and pushing back the darkness, and that really hasn't changed. But there are a couple things that we're going to see that are pretty interesting. These resource pods that we're picking up here were sent ahead of your expedition to kind of help you out, and they're scattered all over the environment. And we also will see these alien nests everywhere that we'll have to contend with at some point. The aliens have been on the planet, obviously, much longer than you have. They're indigenous life forms. And the way that you decide to handle them is a critical decision that you'll make in the game. They're kind of like their own player, and they obey their own rules. So if you decide to be antagonistic towards the aliens, they'll respond to you in kind and be antagonistic toward you. But you can actually leave them alone, and they may not be as aggressive. They'll still attack you, but perhaps not. Here we're seeing the virtue system, which is kind of like social policies from Civ 5, but we've added a key feature here that's really important. In old Civ, it was sort of the critical path to specialize in one of these trees and not deviate. But we've added these things called synergy bonuses, which give you special abilities if you go horizontally or vertically. And this lets you multi-class if you wish, so you can have a lot more flexibility inside this system, which kind of crafts your governmental type as you move forward in the game.
So is this our entire, this crew, is this our entire civilization right now?
It's very small right now. And when you start the game, you start off with just some Marines in spacesuits with machine guns and an explorer unit in a very small city. And you grow into a mighty empire over the course of the game. We also just saw some of the quest system. This is a new addition to Civilization Beyond Earth also. Because we don't have history as sort of the background narrative of our game, we have to create our own story, but we never want to take the story away from the player. So we do this through the quest system, which delivers some of the narrative content, but leaves room for the player to craft their own story. So we've got one here, Gifts from Home, that's instructing us to find all the resource pods, or a few more resource pods on the planet, and that'll give us a reward. So early game quests deliver some fiction, but also help the player learn the game as well. So in addition to the resource pods, we also see these derelict settlements around the map. There's one right there. These are failed expeditions that came before us, and if we send an explorer to those locations and do an expedition there, we may be able to salvage some resources. Unfortunately, that particular one is located in a pretty hot spot with aliens, so we'll have to see.
Do you have a favorite virtue?
I really like the prosperity industry combo. That really emphasizes growth, and I'd like to play a more wide Civ, so that's a good way to do it. So our explorer just got taken out there by the aliens. We were probably a little optimistic going down into the wilderness there, so we may need to build another one later. So we've seen a couple of the resource types on the map here. There's some fungus and tubers around. This one to the north is called Feraxite, which we named very affectionately for its orange color. Feraxite is one of the critical resources in the game, and it's required to build some of the advanced computer systems that you might want to create. So Kavitha of the Indian Protectorate has just shown up. I'm sorry, Dao Ming of the Pan-Asian Cooperative has just showed up. One of the differences here from previous Civilization games is that the other leaders show up at different times. So there's a little bit more asymmetry in this product than in previous ones. And we can talk to her immediately. We don't have to find her in the darkness because it's the future and we have radio.
Right.
So we can do a couple things here. We can try to establish a more cordial relationship. We can be more overtly hostile. But she's on another continent, so we may just leave her alone, or we can decide to trade if we wish. One of the neat new features in the diplomacy system is this idea of favors. So kind of like what you might see in Game of Thrones, where you can manipulate people because of things you've done earlier in the process. You can trade resources for favors with civs early in the game and then cash those in to make them do things that they may otherwise not do.
I see.
So we can cash this favor that we've just gotten with Dao Ming later in the game, perhaps to make her go to war with the civilization we want to soften up.
So there's one planet with different environments that you can choose to land on? Is that how it works?
Well, the fiction kind of infers that there are many planets, and you're visiting, you are one of many expeditions in what's called the seeding, where all of the nations are sending spaceships off to every planet they can find. And each one of the games of Civ Beyond Earth is one of those missions.
Got it.
So this is one of the 3 biome types, but in addition to that, we have many map scripts that we've written that decide where the individual tiles go and what the resource distributions are. So every game you play is a totally different map, procedurally generated just for you.
And will you encounter other expeditions?
Yes, so we've seen these 2 expeditions show up so far, Dao Ming and Reginaldo, and there'll be 6 more that will show up over the course of this game. So those are also expeditions from Earth.
Okay.
It's important to note that while they're aliens on this planet, they're not intelligent, and you don't play as aliens in Beyond Earth. It's a game about humanity and mankind's future. But one of the ways to win is called the contact victory, where you receive this strange signal from outer space, decode it, and build a beacon to talk to an intelligent race.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I wanted to ask you about winning. You said one of the ways to win.
That's one of the ways to win.
How many ways are there?
We've talked a lot about our affinity system, and the affinity is kind of your civilization's attitude and post-human trajectory over the course of the game. Depending on what technologies you research and what choices you make via quests and what you find on the planet, you'll adopt one of 3 affinities: harmony, purity, and supremacy. And each one of those affinity types has a special victory that you can attain. And then there's, of course, domination. You can kill everybody. It's a civilization game, so that'll work too. We're also seeing some quest decisions here. Often things will happen where you'll need to make a choice, and each one of these choices can kind of affect your affinity progress as well.
So at a glance, can you sort of tell how you're doing?
We're doing all right. Our culture border is growing. So you saw that we started out with just 9 hexes. Now we've grown to several more. We've explored quite a bit of the map here, and we're finding our resource pods and completing that quest. And we had a little trouble down to the south with our explorer, but I think we're going to build another one pretty soon. So here's Kavitha. She just showed up as well. I'm sorry, Suzanne Fielding just showed up as well.
How long are you finding the average game lasts?
Oh, it really depends. One of the cool things about Civilization is that our fans will play these games in some of the most protracted ways I've ever seen. A marathon game of Civ played by email, over a period of years and years. We're playing quick right now, and there are 3 more modes. So you can kind of tailor the length of time to your taste. But games can last a long time. It's Civilizations. It's very deep, and there's a lot to do.
Now, at the beginning of the game...
go
ahead.
This is the technology tree. This is one of the big new features in Civilization Beyond Earth. In traditional Civ, technology was a linear affair. You started at the left, you worked your way to the right, everybody researched about the same thing and in roughly the same time. But in Beyond Earth, we wanted to model the uncertain future of mankind. So you start in the middle at habitation now, and you work your way out into this massive web of technologies in any direction you choose, which gives it a lot more replayability and adaptability while you're playing the game.
So in the beginning of the game, you make certain choices, including which organization backs your expedition, and
that's right. That's one of the choices.
Sort of the thrust. are they real world organizations or were they invented for the game?
Well, yeah, they were totally invented. But as I said, the nations of the world kind of reorganized themselves, and there's still some familiar components. So there's still, for example, the United States of America, but who sends the expedition from the U.S. to space is actually the American Reclamation Corporation, which you can think of as like a super PAC times 10.
I see.
And then we've seen Brasilia and the Indian Protectorate, and there's going to be the Slavic Federation, which will show up pretty soon, Franco-Iberia. So these are all made-up organizations and nations, but they are derived from real-world places. Yeah, so we're doing okay here. We're expanding. We've just about conquered some new territory there. The rest of the civs are showing up and will start interacting with us diplomatically. So this is a pretty typical beginning to the game here. We've also got this interesting alien ruin. You can kind of see it behind Barre there. This right here.
I see.
There was an alien species on this planet before you got there. They're called the progenitors. And one of the ways to win the game is to uncover the secret of the progenitors and talk to them for the first time. As I mentioned, it's the contact victory. This is us drawing from some of the great science fiction literature that we all love. This one is from Carl Sagan's Contact, the story of Contact.
Sure.
But there's a lot more sci-fi influence in this game, and also influence from real spaceflight history. So you'll notice the aesthetic early in the game is very much NASA with guns, right? Everybody has sort of Apollo spacesuits on, and the habitat looks something like NASA would build in another 30 years. But it very quickly progresses from that to more the realm of high sci-fi. But it was important to us to start there and to progress incrementally up the chain until you get to the end to maintain that thread of believability through the whole thing.
Just launching a missile attack there against
yes.
aliens?
So we have an alien incursion on our border, and to take care of that, the city can defend itself, and launched a missile at the wolf beetles there. So this is the city management screen here. This is a pretty dense screen, probably difficult to explain, in the time we have, but you have a lot of control over the civilization itself, the cities, each individual city through that interface. But if you're new to civilization, a lot of it can be automated, so it'll just get out of your way. But it's important to have that kind of degree of control for our really hardcore fans.
Now, are you basing your tech on real-world tech and sort of what today's scientists think will be possible in the future?
Absolutely. And a lot of this just really is what David and I personally were interested in. So things like thinking computers and bioengineering and alternative energy sources like geothermal and thorium are all sort of the basis for the center of the tech web. And we, again, sort of in incremental steps extrapolated from there into what we envisioned the future of that technology would be. It was a really fun design process.
I bet.
And our artists had a really great time, too. They've been making Civilization for a very long time, and it's mainly sort of a research project for them. They have to go in and learn what the actual historical Archer would look like for whatever nation they're thinking about, and then kind of draw that in the style of the game. But in this, we asked them to invent things, and that was a really refreshing and exciting thing for them to do.
All right, new quest decision.
Yeah, so again, we're being asked to make sort of ideological choices about these quests. We're huge fans of games like FTL that have sort of lightweight quest decisions and lightweight narrative. One of the challenges of a science fiction game like Civilization is to deliver just enough fiction that the player has context, but no more, so that they can build their own story. And the analogy we use is that the fiction in this game is a lot like the blurbs on Magic cards. Okay, so Magic the Gathering has these kind of windows, these small windows into its fiction, but not enough where they tell the story for you. And that's the approach that we took with this.
In Magic, it's like it's there if you want to investigate more.
Right, and it gives you that fictional foundation to build your own story on top of.
So we've got some aquatic aliens here.
Yes, unfortunately we won't get to the aquatic gameplay because we'd have to build a city on the coast first. But there's some pretty cool aquatic aliens. These are the smaller ones. We may see a bigger one show up a little later, but you really have to protect yourself in the sea or you'll get killed pretty quickly.
Are there a lot of different alien species on the planet?
Yes, so we've seen the wolf beetles and then these small aquatic ones, but there's several more, and as you play the game more and more, different kinds of aliens will show up and start to field more sophisticated tactical missions against you. And this is another thing that you have to watch out for, because the more you antagonize the aliens, the better at fighting you they get.
I see.
We've also just seen a station show up. We can get back to that in just a second. Stations are kind of lightweight diplomatic entities, this Adept Blue station here. And you interact with them by trading. So once you gain the ability to trade, you can establish trade routes to that city, or that station, and the more you trade with it, the better things will come out of it. But it doesn't belong to you, so another civ could trade with it as well. And they can also represent a strategic vulnerability. If you can imagine that station sitting in between two civs, the one that trades with it the most is going to have a distinct advantage.
I see.
You can also destroy a station that may be the backbone of a civ's infrastructure and cripple them without actually going to war. And the diplomatic AI will really pay attention to that kind of stuff. So it looks like we've set up an expedition over that alien ruin there. You see the explorer digging up pieces from it.
So I think there's a new type of alien.
And perhaps a new type of alien. Yeah, let's see.
Over here, yeah.
Over here. Oh, that's the alien down there in the bottom corner. That's actually a resource.
Oh,
that's
okay.
That's sort of a silk resin resource that you can improve. You can build sort of a paddock improvement on top of that to harvest that resource. And there are several others like that scattered around the map. But we'll have to build cities there or expand our influence to those tiles before we can start to improve them. You see our worker busily improving the tiles that we have access to, building plantations on top of them. All right, another civ just showed up. You'll notice that each of those drop ships have FRXS written on them. Just a little
another
Easter
little
egg.
Easter egg in there.
Right. So this is LOD of Franco-Iberia. They're very much the culture civ, being from France. So each leader in previous civ games has come with its own set of advantages. And it's the same in this game, but because of the other decisions you get to make before the game even starts, and a part of it that we call the seeded start before you land, each leader and your own build is very different each time you play. So the diplomatic landscape and the opponents you have in each game are really a puzzle that you have to crack every time you play. We never want there to be a critical path through this game, and this is an important sort of design philosophy we have at Firaxis. Once someone figures out a build order, or an optimal path through our virtues tree, or through the tech tree, that's when we're going to listen to that and start to adapt, because we want every choice to be meaningful and think strategically. So we've just made progress in one of these affinities, and this is the purity affinity. We've gained enough points by exploring the map to level up in this affinity, and this will allow us to upgrade our first unit. This is one of the cool new features in the game. You kind of unlock unit classes, and then you upgrade them throughout the course of the game. And each time you upgrade them, they get an additional strength bump, but you also get to pick between two perks. So you'll traverse this upgrade tree differently from your neighbor, and each army is sort of specialized to that particular playstyle. And you can see that they'll start to diverge in their aesthetic as well. So now our Marine down here will be much more effective at clearing out those aliens. And maybe we can get to the site down there we wanted to explore.
We've got 2 minutes.
Okay.
So the map is procedurally generated each game.
That's right.
But are they always the same size?
No. This map, I think, is a standard, well, maybe a little bit smaller than standard size. It really depends on the number of players you want. So the map scripts are calibrated to distribute resources evenly so that 2 players have a fun game, or 4 players have a fun game, or 8 players have a fun game. We always, always, always balance our games for fun. Not for realism or anything like that. It's always player-focused balancing.
Sure.
So even though something may, not make sense in terms of its realistic depiction, if it's fun, we always roll with that.
Roll with fun.
Roll with fun.
That's
right. And that really comes from Sid himself. I mean, it is Sid Meier's Civilization Beyond Earth, and his influence is definitely felt on our design team. And we have a great time working with him, and we always learn a lot. Things like that, always keep the player first.
Will, before we go, I want to know, do you believe in aliens?
I do believe in aliens. Yeah. I absolutely do.
I love the idea of it. I don't know that I believe, but I think it would be awesome. I think it would be really stupid if we were the only people living in the entire universe.
I think it would be. Things. And I think finding out is one of those moments.
Yeah, for sure. Civilization Beyond Earth is out October 24th.
October 24th, and it's an international release. Sure. So everyone will get it at the same time.
Very cool. Well, thank you so much for coming by the show.
Thanks a lot.
The game looks awesome. Can't wait to play. Stay tuned. We have much more to show you from Day 2 here at Gamescom, presented by Dead Island 2, right after these messages.